651 Carpet Studios, 651 Carpets Plus Studios, excuse me. It's Nordo in for PA on a gorgeous Wednesday morning in Minneapolis/St. Paul. And Brett Blakemore produces. PA, this is not a vocal maintenance day. It's important to note that the voice is fine. Everything's good. But for the host of 9 to noon...
And he's loose!
He's just got to get a tune-up today. He's getting the old oil change.
And boom!
And so he will, and I've already received some proof of life text messages from the host of 9 to noon. It sounds as though everything went well.
And he's loose!
So the host will be back in the saddle tomorrow.
Ooh!
But the voice is good, the heart is strong, and everything is moving forward. Thanks for joining us on a Wednesday morning. Of course, training camp is in the mix. We're going to get to the TimberTech set list. And throughout 9 to noon today, it's going to be heavy on not only Vikings training camp, some NFL bits, but of course at 11 o'clock, Dan Hayes from The Athletic will be joining us to celebrate. The Twins made a move. You asked and you received, Minnesota Twins fans, a trade deadline deal. But it's Trevor Richards. It's Trevor Richards, potentially the missing piece for the Minnesota Twins pitching staff. Some would say awful. I would say awesome or dud or thud. I mean, yeah. The Twins fans' reaction to such things yesterday, somewhat predictable. The air of apathy. If you're running a team, you probably don't want apathetic fans in the stable. But that was the vibe with it yesterday. I saw this from Aaron Gleeman of The Athletic. Love Gleeman. The Minnesota Twins were the last of 30 teams to make a trade. And their lone move ended up being one of the lowest wattage deadline deals across the MLB.
No!
Welcome, Trevor Richards. They traded Jay Harry, a marginal prospect, still with Gleeman here. They traded a marginal prospect ranked outside of their top 50 for 2 months of a low leverage reliever.
No!
That's a tough way to, hey guys, nice to meet you. Put him in front of a microphone. Low leverage reliever.
L.
So as we've gone down, and I saw this yesterday, listener of the fan. I've never met him, so I would never be so bold as to call him a rube. Seems like a bright guy. But Dan Minnesota, and you may hear that name bandied about sometimes bumper to bumper, calendar of calamity, and some of the things you hear during the drive time, bumper to bumper, Dan Barrero. But he went through, and this is, I think it's important and it's valid as part of the argument, but it is almost becoming reflexive at this point, especially just days after you would have heard Derek Falvey effectively stating that he is hamstrung. He is hamstrung by the purse strings, potentially, of the ownership. He wouldn't put it that way. I will. And therefore, any moves that were made near the deadline, I mean, you had to hold on to your butts yesterday when you heard this one come through. But that anything that was done with the team, there would also have to be a give. There would have to be salary out the door of some point. Again, the right sizing of the business, less than a year after making some memories, ending a playoff drought, giving you hope, and being very game in a series against the Astros. Right sizing the business. But I saw this from Dan. He put a spreadsheet together. He's very organized. I think he's a teacher, so that makes sense. I've had trouble with Excel over the course of time. I can get like sums together and things and averages, but I'm no maestro. But the average payroll ranks of World Series participants post 1991, the average winner would be 7th in Major League Baseball. Okay. Not necessarily the best. You can think of times like the 03 Marlins. They were 25th in Major League Baseball. More recently, the 2017 Astros. All the can banging and buzzers and everything abound. They were 18th. Those pesky Royals in 2015, they were 16th. But for the majority, you're going to see numbers here. People top 10, averages out. From now, 1994, not in the mix. I think there was a strike. The average payroll of a World Series winning team was 7th. The average payroll even of the runner-up over the course of time. Diamondbacks last year, they were 21st in Major League Baseball. The Rays, always figuring out how to make it work. They only get like 5,500 people at Tropicana as it is. Nobody can find their way from Tampa into St. Pete, Clearwater area, and they don't go to the games, which might play into that 28th ranked payroll. They sell off all of their great players before they have to pay them. They were 28th. Cleveland, 23 when the Cubs ended the curse, stuff like that. You know these numbers. Again, it's reflexive. We go back to that every single time. But the average payroll of a runner-up post-Twins 91 was 11th. And then, of course, the Twins, their average payroll over the course of time, 20. So it's a never-ending conversation that will persist until the end of time. But many Twins fans feeling on the verge now, and as other news has come out, now it's, I mean, you want to talk about a landslide of bad news. Guys going on the 60-day IL. This guy's hurt. Everybody's hurt. If you didn't know, Randy Dobnak was still with the organization. You're about to get to know him. He's been elevated, I believe. They purchased his contract. And enter Trevor Richards. So let's dig into the details with Trevor. He's a 31-year-old. Debuted in 2018. He's played for 4 different teams. So the Minnesota Twins shall be his 5th. 45 appearances thus far in 2024, 52 and a third innings. Strikeouts are lower than they've been in years. It's kind of turning, I'm starting to feel like, is this baseball's version of just a guy? Did we trade for a Jag?
No!
And then Jay Harry. Get to know him. The love you lost. Former Penn Stater. Low-end prospect. He goes to Toronto. So that's where we're at there. The Stomont cat, he's been DFA'd. Kirilloff to the 60-day IL. Brock Stewart is hurt. My goodness. Randy Dobnak is back. I mentioned that. Now, the only thing with this Trevor Richards thing is that, at least we could say here, potentially, that, okay, numbers, they're fine. Low leverage guy, we totally get it, but maybe he's on the come. Maybe we got him on the trend upwards. Well, here he is in July. He's made 10 appearances. 10 and a third innings pitched. In 10 and a third innings, he has allowed 15 earned runs. He has struck out just 9 in those 10 and a third innings. He's walked 8. Oof. And an ERA of 13. So we have not, it's possible that he's just having a bad month. He's going to get over that. It's the last piece of the puzzle. All jokes aside, this is a team that is ailing in health right now. And so that should be ultimately the atopic of a team. And maybe that factors into a decision for a team that, despite losing 2 in a row here to New York, and the final one's going to be a nooner today. It's Lopez and Severino. Luis Severino, former Yankee. Now he's a Met. Probably got to keep the same condo. Good for Luis. So get that one today and come home against the Chicago White Sox. White Sox are awful. You should sweep that series. But maybe the injury situation plays into this. The fact that gap is gaining in the AL Central. The gap is widening, I should say. And this is an ownership group that has made decisions very consistently. That's the one thing you can't say about this team. They're definitely consistent. They definitely, this time of year, have proven a track record over the course of time in which they're going to do exactly the same type of thing. They're going to stay within the bounds of their revenue, the bounds of their particular budget each and every year. So we should not be surprised. But Trevor Richards, get to know him. You asked for it, and the Twins made a deadline deal. Thank you for that. But we will get into that more so at 11 o'clock with Dan Hayes. They still are playing the games. They still are, as of now, very comfortably in the playoff mix. They still have an opportunity, if to get healthy, to make some noise in kind of a muddy American League right now. So all of those things considered, there's still optimism. And starting tomorrow, for a small convenience charge, you can watch them on TV again. So not all is lost with the baseball team, but certainly an underwhelming situation at the trade deadline. Probably garners zero surprise. TimberTech set list brought to you by TimberTech. Get your decking done with TimberTech. TimberTech.com. At 10 a.m., Ahmad Hicks, Fox 90, is going to be in studio. He's been at training camp. He interviewed Jay Ward yesterday. I want to talk to him about that. But get a vibe for camp. We got Olympics going on. Go for footballs on the horizon. We're going to talk about a bunch of stuff in studio with Ahmad at 10. As I mentioned, Dan Hayes of The Athletic covers the Minnesota Twins. He'll join me at 11. We'll continue this conversation not only about Trevor, but these significant injury issues that continue to persist and crop up for the hometown nine. Brett Blakemore is in here. We got Vikes Bites around the corner. Thanks for hanging out with us on a Wednesday.
If you want to chime in what's happening in your favorite KFAN shows, you can make your voice heard on the Bradshaw and Bryant KFAN text line. Just let us know what you have to say by texting your message to 64686. That's 64686. Standard text message and data rate supply.
And he's loose!
Yeah, text messages always appreciated. A couple here. I don't want to hear any excuses for the Minnesota Twins and owner Jim Pohlad, an estimated $3.8 billion billionaire owner who's cheaper than Ebenezer Scrooge. Oof. Every team in the division improved their team, and we skate on the cheap. At least the Wilfs want to win. Pohlads just want money. Sad Brandon in New Mexico. I wonder how this says. You know, we've heard that attendance is down, and I suspect that's because of the TV clump. It's out of sight, it's out of mind. We here in Minnesota are very good at. I mean, we'll jump on any bandwagon. There's no doubt about that. But we can also jump off the bandwagon too. We can go do other stuff. We got lakes, we got cabin culture, we got all kinds of things to do all summer long. And if you're not going to let us in. We don't have access to something. We'll just go do something else, and we'll get over it. Now, that can quickly change. Again, tomorrow, wake up, it's the first of the month, and for a small convenience charge, you can begin watching Twins games on Comcast again. Good news. First game on Friday, I think White Sox in town, so looking forward to that. But I'm always balancing this, spending other people's money, and for me, I think the A topic's going to be more about how they message this than actually the execution of it. And I think whether it's managing your farm assets and developing, keeping guys. I mean, this is ultimately a team that, save for a couple names, this is not constantly a team. And I know that David Ortiz is going to pop up. That was a big one. That's a Hall of Fame example. But this isn't a team that's necessarily always getting rid of guys that ultimately flourish and excel and are among the league's best at other locations. This ultimately becomes a situation where we're developing, we get them to a certain point, and then there's a leveling period. There's a plateau. And so is it always going to be about money and just adding and doing what the Yankees do and doing what some of these teams do financially? That certainly is a topic. I'm not a person that's trying to make excuses for them per se, but I am organizationally questioning from a development standpoint and ultimately getting the most out of the guys that you're bringing up. The free ones, by the way, the guys you get to have before they earn all that money. We're not seeing a ton of those guys go and be $40 million guys elsewhere. So what's not happening there that allows us to put this team together in a way that is consistently competitive and can win in that regard? So just continuing to think about some of that. But again, no excuses. This team certainly is not in a position where they can't go out and supplement this team en route to a playoff run. And Twins fans, whether it be how this TV thing was handled, how these sorts of things have happened at the trade deadline for years, how off-season negotiations and things happen, you have every right to be frustrated. You're the guys that are paying the money to watch these guys, paying the money to go see these guys. Thank you for the text messages. Text messages continue to roll in. Always accepted 9 to noon. We'll continue to read them throughout the show. But Vikes Bites, back to the lesson at hand, is brought to you by Thousand Hills Lifetime Grazed Grass-Fed Beef. Thousand Hills Lifetime Grazed.com. You can get the stuff showing up at your door in a box. Think about a box of meat on your doorstep. That's sweet. The product's delicious, by the way. It's a Clearwater, Minnesota company. You can also find them at your local Coborns, your local co-ops locations as well. Where are we headed to first, Brett?
Vikes Bites!
Well, I had it written as the Vikings are planning to sign free agent cornerback Fabian Moreau. But now it's official, according to every Vikings beat writer. They've tweeted it out over the past 15 minutes. They have signed free agent cornerback Fabian Moreau. They waived linebacker Abraham Beauplan, I'm going with.
Beauplan, yeah.
Beauplan, to make room. So there you have it. Another cornerback in the mix over at TCO.
Yeah, whether it's Shaq Griffin, and I heard him, he was interviewed after practice, and it sounds like he's getting closer and closer to being back in the mix, so that's nice. We know about Byron Murphy Jr., we know about Andrew Booth, we know about Caleb Evans, we know about Duke. The Duke is on fire. Dwight McClothern, the undrafted rookie. A.J. Green III. Admittedly, I don't know much about A.J. Green III. I know that he's not the A.J. Green who scored touchdowns for the Bengals. So that's one thing that I know, and apparently he plays cornerback for the Minnesota Vikings. I mentioned with Ahmad, he's in studio at 10. Jay Ward has been moving around a little bit and has been actually participating in cornerback drills. He sounds game for the challenge. That's what this thing's going to be. It's body in, body out, and none of it's going to be exciting. You're not going to hear a multi-year deal for Xavier Howard and just kind of those pie-in-the-sky dreams about a quick fix to this thing. This thing's going to be all hands on deck, and it's one of the worrisome aspects, talking about it during the Friday Feast last Friday, is there's an element of this through the offseason. So forget the injuries, forget the tragedy with Kyrie. And just thinking about what they did as a franchise and Kwesi's kind of measured spending spree that has all been part of getting this thing healthier, or getting this thing financially healthier and getting this thing younger. It felt like we left, and that's a big miss for Danielle Hunter. Not having Danielle is a big deal. But I also feel, whether it's Van Ginkel, you draft Dallas Turner, you do some of these other things, and you look at how this thing's constructed now, I would actually say that the front seven is deeper and more athletic. And you got to rely on Ivan Pace getting better in year two and those sorts of things. And you got to rely on Blake Cashman, who has had health issues for a large majority of his NFL career. But when he's given the opportunity, we've seen him make plays. I think we actually got better in that regard. So the only remaining question, we like our safety group too, right? We like Metellus. We like Cam Bynum. Cam Bynum, I think, is going to need some money here at some point. We like Hitman. But the only question was corner. And so now it's all hands on deck. It's going to be, how can this front seven make life even a fraction easier on that cornerback group? And it's going to be Byron Murphy. Please stay healthy. It's going to be Shaq Griffin. Once you get back on the field, don't leave it. But it is going to be Fabian Moreau. And he had an all right season a couple years ago for the Giants. We saw him twice. We saw him in Christmas. We saw him and then in that playoff game. I think he has 7 career picks. This isn't exactly a ball hawking stud. This is his 3rd or 4th team as well. Is this the NFL version of adding Trevor Richards? I'd actually say it might be a little bit better than that. Let's not get down on the thing, but I would expect, even, as camp goes on, that this may not even be the last corner ultimately that you hear being signed to the purple. So it's that time of the year, and we're in that type of spot. Fabian Moreau he neither excites me nor annoys me, but get used to that. There's going to be a bunch of names floating in and around as they just try to find some kind of combination that can work with this front seven that I think is going to be deeper and better than it was a year ago. And we need it to be.
Vikes Bites.
Vikes Bites.
There we go.
Thank you. The kicker battle, as we know, is over. But at the end of yesterday's practice, Will Reichert, they were simulating game situations.
Yeah.
They had a kick from 52, 54, and 55. He made the third, but missed the first 2.
Oh, my God.
Oh, yeah.
Above average at that.
See, I've entered a stage in life where I feel like I am, like I said, I'm really I wouldn't say I'm nonplussed, but when it comes to Fabian Moreau, the name, it's just it's elevator conversation at this point. And Fabian, by the way, in the land of opportunity, is going to have an opportunity to make plays and be in that rotation. So I don't want to, indict him. He's trying to extend his career. Good for him. And we need it. But how do I explain this with the kicking situation? Reichard, I'm neither old nor young, and I'm watching Reichard yesterday, and I thought I was watching like some sort of like Mike Max doing like a prep report on WCCO. Like he just looks like he's 12 years old out there. And all the kicking issues, we can't get it out of our heads. He's got an absolute cannon of a leg. We get rid of the TikTok cat, John Parker Romo. And so he's the guy. I'm trying not to, in the same vein that I would overanalyze every good throw that J.J. McCarthy makes or every bad throw that Sam Darnold makes. Trying not to overanalyze it. I know he's got the power, but I need to see those makes. And it was fine. It was one day in camp. That's the end of it. He's our guy. Like, you guys went into it last year. Now, I shouldn't even invoke the name because ultimately I don't want to bring that curse upon our purple and gold household. But Anders Carlson, right? You got the wrong Carlson, didn't you?
We'll see.
The Vikings had the right Carlson at one point, and things went south. And you're sitting there with an opportunity to win out in the Bay, and you just needed a 41-yard field goal in the fourth quarter to make it a 7-point game. So that ultimately, in the final minute of the fourth quarter, after I think it was McCaffrey who scored. Was it McCaffrey with the go-ahead TD? It was?
Yeah.
So McCaffrey gets the go-ahead TD, and instead of being tied, and now you have Jordan Love with poise, you have Jordan Love with a run game, you have Jordan Love with a chance to go down and put a confident and field goal-making Anders Carlson in the mix for a game-winning field goal. You have him trying to create magic. And he ain't magical. Maybe he will be someday. But he isn't yet. So you guys felt that vibe a year ago with Anders Carlson, sweating all of that. We overreacted to our Carlson in 2018.
Yep.
Cutting him 3 games into his career. And he's turned out pretty well for the Las Vegas Raiders.
Well, you know who's battling for the Anders Carlson spot?
Well, yeah, it's Greg
Joseph. Come on.
But see, that whole thing, though, with Greg and the Packers, just get rid of Anders. I honestly don't understand it, only because Greg's going to roll into camp, and I haven't seen updates. And I'm not, I'm not listening or reading what the head cheese Dave Sinekin is saying right now on a daily basis. I do as the season crops up, but right now it's nothing but.
Yeah.
Man, in some days we're going to look back and we actually got a deal for Jordan Love. Like, everything, sky's the limit. There's too much happiness happening over there right now, and I'm not really excited about it.
I deserve the Packers cheap shot since I was trying to get you going that Will Reichard missed 2 kicks. So
no, but
I wasn't being, it was mostly doing a bit, but he did miss them, but it's like, who cares?
No, but
anyways.
But in the case of Anders Carlson, in some ways, you're hoping that there's some sort of a jump, but you know what you have in Greg. So are you signing him to the team specifically to light a fire under Anders Carlson? Maybe that's the case, but you already know what you're going to get out of Greg Joseph. So either you like that, which there were moments of greatness, there were moments of, are you freaking kidding me? With him, get rid of Anders and keep Greg, or just dump Greg and keep Anders. Yep. Like I don't understand, and I think you guys even still have a third kicker on the team too.
They cut Podlesny. Do you remember him, the Georgia kicker? Yeah,
I think the Vikings signed him as a free agent. I think he's been
at one point.
I think he's been a Viking too.
Yeah. Anyways,
good luck to that.
Yes,
I'm still very bullish on Reichard. But he did miss 2 kicks tomorrow, so if the next time he misses a kick, I'm going to ask for him to be cut and bring Greg Joseph back.
Vikes Bites.
Yes, back to the Vikings. JJ is spinning it at camp. Rave reviews for JJ. But Kevin O'Connell reiterated yesterday that He'll get consistent first-team reps, just not yet. They're holding off on giving him first-team reps. Do you read into the first-team? I know it's been said on this show hundreds of times that JJ's probably not playing this year, period. If all goes to plan, he's not playing. But then we get the story, he might get first-team reps. We might see a little bit of him. He's working his way up. He's spinning it. These stories will just never end no matter what. But your thoughts on him potentially getting some first-team reps consistently in the near future?
Well, it was interesting. Over the course of camp, I've actually heard people talking about how, well, JJ's arm strength is coming through every single time he throws the ball. Mm-hmm. JJ McCarthy has a cannon of an arm. So however the other parts fit in and how the other parts develop, all of that time will tell. But he's got a cannon of an arm. His placement is terrific. And there are some that are saying he's outplaying Sam Darnold in camp.
Oh my gosh.
But then you have, and PAs refer to them as the aggregators, those that will take other people's content and kind of re-report it, right? And then, in the social media world, that works with them. People will follow them, considering them almost as a certified news source.
Like a curator almost.
And I see, and it's not like they're lying out there. They're repurposing or repackaging and redelivering the content and the statements and the quotes of others. But then there are other things. I think it's like Dov Kleiman or something. He posted something, and it was the interception that JJ threw yesterday, threw it into double coverage. The thing there was no chance. And then he but he didn't repackage it with a quote or a legitimate report in terms of, this is, here's a video, here's a bad JJ McCarthy highlight, and here's what XYZ scribe on the ground had to say. He just said, and sources can be anybody, that JJ's had an awful camp and people are worried about. No! That's ridiculous. Nobody at this stage is worried about JJ. And I hope it goes better than it's gone in Philly with the Sixers. This is a trust the process moment. Of course, Sam Darnold's going to get the ones, veteran equity, and more pro-ready at this stage. And absolutely the rookie's going to be elevated into getting number one reps and snaps. And once the preseason starts, you're going to see JJ out there getting significant runs during the preseason games themselves. But because the Justin Jeffersons and the Darisaws and those people will not be playing in those preseason games, I don't believe, then that means you're going to have to get those reps in practice. So, of course, J.J. McCarthy is going to get reps with the ones. That is no surprise at all, and he absolutely should. So get to training camp practices to see these guys. And both, there's a fluidity to the offense. And, again, as an outsider, how much is truly being installed, how technical, how deep in the weeds are they getting with the playbook? And the easing in process of JJ playing with the twos, playing with the threes. You're hearing a lot about him throwing, he had a 50-yard deep ball to Tristan Jackson yesterday. Just a hair underthrown by JJ. You gotta let the training wheels off that cannon a little bit, JJ. Christian had to slow down. He had to come back for it just a tick. But then he got into the end zone. But you're hearing a lot of JJ to Jalen Naylor, a lot of JJ, Tristan Jackson, Wolf of Walk-Ons, Thayer Thomases of the world. You're going to see him working with the ones, and it's going to be really cool. But right now, Sam Darnold doing his thing. People have been harping on him a little bit. I guess he has a streak of interceptions that he's been throwing in practice. This is all a part of the over-analysis aspect of preseason, and it's kind of fun to do it. It's kind of fun to obsess over it.
Fun.
In the end, the same thing we've talked about all summer will ring true until week one, or maybe at least into the preseason games, is that this is all projecting. This is all putting the pieces together, and I'm excited for it. But yeah, JJ's going to get reps with the ones, absolutely. But that still doesn't move me off my spot that Darnold is absolutely starting week one. And but we still have, of course, what time is it? It's 9:35 a.m. on Wednesday, July 31st. So we still have a better part of 6 weeks for JJ to have a say in that competition, a say in that fight. He's been pretty good overall. He's looked like a rookie at times. Darnold has been more steady, I think. But you can see that the talent and the mobility of both of these guys, it just looks so different than it did the previous 6 with Kirk. And it's kind of fun.
Vikes Bites!
More on a JJ McCarthy fan line. I mean, Vikes Bites! Something that came out, I don't know if you brought it up, but speaking just since we're on JJ, Seifert tweeted this out that Flores had a revelation, or they had a revelation, that Brian Flores has had several conversations with JJ McCarthy about NFL defensive schemes. One thing they've zeroed in on, identifying tells. There's always someone giving something away. Brian Flores has taken JJ McCarthy under his wing. Here we go. Yes. Your thoughts?
Well, my thought is, for instance, in any job, when I started here as an intern, I was down the hall on the news talk side where the evil Republicans are. But trying to get in the door and trying to learn as much as I could, all resources were up for grabs. And I was, and I still am, the king of asking just stupid questions. If I want to learn about something, I'm not going to be, I don't have an ego about it. I will ask the dumbest, most elementary question I possibly can so I can know something and never have to ask that question again. And in the football sense, many of you out there listening, how have you grown and gotten better at your jobs? You've taken advantage of all the resources. Some of you take night classes. Some of you read books. You use online resources. You do all of those things, whatever you can to find an edge and to advance your career at a quicker pace. It would be stupid for anybody in any industry to look at themselves and say, how do I get better? And not figure out, wait a minute. I see all the guys that make all the money and win all the games and hoist all the trophies. These guys are so clued in on defense. These guys are so educated and clued in on films. They're so smart that a lot of times they know what the defense is doing before the defense does it. So why would I not talk to the defensive coordinator and ask him all the stupid questions? I want to learn more, and we're just talking about our own players right now. Hey, every time Blake Cashman slaps his left thigh, this happens. Hey, I noticed on these 2 plays that there's a little shuffling of the feet. Well, that means that Dallas Turner is dropping back into coverage, right? And he's got Brian Flores, who his entire job these days is creating tricks and creating mysteries and confusion, given at times a lack of talent, specifically in the secondary. We've talked about that. No need to harp on it. Why would you not use those resources? That's awesome. And the fact is, from my standpoint, hearing that JJ has he's been the guy that has been the catalyst for that he has reached out, that he wants to learn more. Yeah, that's terrific. And I'm sure a ton of rookies do it. A ton of young people do it. How does he take that information and run with it?
It'd be like working at the Fan and not asking Barb for free tickets. You got to use your resources that you have. Anyways, I'll see myself
Vikes
out.
Bites.
We can move on.
You ask Barb for free tickets?
Sometimes.
What have you done to earn free tickets?
I'm around.
That's fair.
Vikes Bites.
Vikes Bites. Speaking of the secondary that may or may not have talent on it, Lewis seen lower leg strain officially in his day-to-day. Can this guy catch a break? Because it is unfortunate.
No, and he really hasn't created his own breaks either. Yeah, it's disappointing. I kind of take the same. I'm getting to the same point where PA is on this, and it's just. I don't want to say it's a non-talker. This guy's trying to maintain his NFL life and maintain his career with the Minnesota Vikings, but the whole first-rounder thing's that's been out the window. He couldn't even make he would not have been a starter and would have played minimal snaps, as a rookie. Now you pile on the fact that he's also dealing with that injury his rookie season's got to rebound from that and all of that, but there's just been no spark. And he got almost no run a year ago. There's a reason for that. Something has not clicked, and it continues not to click. So the sad part for him is that in a situation where we got guys like Jay Ward now trying to play corner, and we're just trying to find bodies that can contribute, that he can't be out there. And we saw it. He's standing under the under the upright, watching the 2s and 3s play, and we were questioning what's going on with that. Clearly, there's an injury in the mix, but it's just I just don't see a spot for him on this team. So, in the same vein that we would talk about anybody where it's just not working out, you hope that he gets healthy and finds his way with another team, but things continue. He can't catch a break. He can't make his own breaks. And therefore, from my standpoint, he shouldn't be on the 53. Let's do this. That's Vikes Bites. Thank you, Brett. I know you might have 1 or 2 left in the tank, and final hour we'll have some more time for that. But Vikes Bites is brought to you by Thousand Hills Lifetime Grazed Grass-Fed Beef. Ahmad Hicks in studio at 10. But we're going to look around the NFL when we return. Is it a big deal? Is it no big deal? Brett has more on that around the corner. You're listening to 9 to noon on The Fan.
Hockey season right around the corner, and you can join the Minnesota Wild for their Block Party series presented by Cub at Cub Foods in Rosemont Tuesday, August 6th. Stop by from 5 to 8 p.m. for fun games, KFAN swag. All proceeds from concessions will be donated to local youth hockey associations. Full details over to KFAN.com, keyword calendar.
Got this text message. Text messages 64686. Bradshaw and Brian text line. Is Darnold really going to be ready for week 1 when JJ is taking half his first team reps? And I don't, half, just kind of throwing an arbitrary number out there. Who knows what it exactly will look like. And it's not a completely unfair point. I do believe that both of these guys will play in the preseason. And so, therefore, both are going to, versus Kirk, and we're just, put it on ice. Says Pete Bursich. It'll be a little bit different this time around. I think ready is, as this thing lifts off, ready becomes kind of a subjective term in regard. I think he's going to get plenty of reps. So I'm not worried about the amount of reps that Sam Darnold is going to get. I am worried, though. Not worried. But I would say to prepare yourself for the fact that we saw even with Kirk Cousins that the mastery of this offense, that being ready did not mean mastery of how this thing ultimately was going to look. And he worked his way through 2022. And finally, last season, at least statistically, team starts out 1-4. They just couldn't bother holding onto the ball at any point in time. We've talked about the turnovers, absolutely. But the team was 1-4, and Kirk was having the statistically best start to the season of his career. So being ready, does that mean mastery? What does this thing look like week 1? Is it high flying, high gunning? And again, the idea of this being one of the elite offenses in the NFL, I just don't see that. But he will be ready in regard that I still believe of the two, he and J.J. McCarthy, that he will be the one under center when the Vikings take on the Giants at MetLife week 1. But yeah, just framing it up, J.J. needs his chance with the ones. I do not believe that that's inherently then stunting the preparation of Sam Darnold. I just wouldn't look at it that way. But big deal or no big deal, Brett, you put this together, and it's kind of the idea the NFL has 32 teams, not one, even though I'd prefer just to focus on one as much as I possibly can, or at least eliminate one of that 32 from the conversation.
Correct.
At all times, your favorite team. But big deal or no big deal, bits happening around the NFL between you and I. We will decide whether it is a big deal or no big deal. The texters will have their say in this as well. Where are we headed to first?
We're headed to Atlanta first because their owner, Arthur Blank, has been talking in the media the past couple days. One thing that stuck out to me, he said, quote, "We made it clear to Kirk that we were probably going to draft a quarterback in this draft." And it turned out that Michael Penix, who our coaching staff and personnel department graded extraordinarily high, they viewed him as a tremendous player, was there. So they made it clear to Kirk, apparently, before the draft, QB was coming at some point.
Well, okay, before the draft, if we're looking into semantics, does that mean before the draft is in before they were on the clock? Because all those reports came out that he was on his way to like a fan fest. He was going to go pump up the crowd at the draft party. We got Kirko chains. Talk about a lack of creativity with the Atlanta folks. Come on. That was our thing. He was on our plane. He was shirtless with our team. It's a big deal ultimately in the fact that everything that I've heard and seen reported elsewhere was that he's going there. It's a win now operation. You give the guy all that guaranteed cash, and you have an opportunity with the 8th pick to immediately bolster and immediately help. As a matter of fact, many people were thinking, wow, Dallas Turner, this team can't sack anybody. If they took Dallas Turner at 8, think about what that could do. They don't do it. They take Penix. And Penix also immediately, when you take a 24-year-old guy, it's not fair necessarily to Penix, but we're not operating in a universe of ultimate fairness. He's kind of on a clock, right? I mean, you're not going to let him sit for 4 or 5 years. I mean, even Jordan Love, he's still 24, 25, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So picture if you had to make the $250 million deal on limited reps and he's 28. I mean, that's you got to play that numbers game a little bit. So it's a big deal in that regard, but it's no big deal because I can't speak for every Vikings fan out there. I just don't care. I don't care anymore. Best of luck to Kirk in Atlanta, except when they play us. I don't care. We gotta move on from it. And this is not an indictment of you bringing it up. It's a thing that's in the news. And I even yesterday played an audio of it. He was talking with Chase Daniel and Diana Rossini. You can't escape it. But it's just I got to move on. It's time to move on. Kirk, thanks for the memories. But now I'm going to sit here and obsess over every throw of J.J. McCarthy. And now I'm excited as I've seen players and I've heard various things thus far in camp that there is an incredibly positive and optimistic vibe about moving forward with both Darnold and McCarthy and what the future holds. I am soaking all of that in. I don't have time for Kirk. Figure it out. I think the Falcons made a huge mistake taking Penix at 8. That's what I think. And I hope that Kirk stays healthy. I hope Kirk finds some semblance of success down there while the Falcons lose a bunch of games, and specifically when they come to US Bank Stadium later this year. So no big deal for me. You cool with that?
Yeah, I mean,
you on board with that?
Yeah, it's no big deal. I mean, it is what it is at this point.
Well,
there's no taking it back now.
You don't care because you're a Packers fan. And,
okay.
Whatever. Jordan loved this.
Speaking of things I don't care about, here's a couple bites on the Bears. One, DJ Moore, biggest extension in Bears history, 4 years, $110 million.
Yeah,
for DJ Moore. That's huge money spent for the Bears and their offense under a terrible offensive coach in Eberflus.
Yeah, DJ Moore is so good. Now, adding Keenan Allen to the mix, he's probably, I think he's a 1-year bit. Roma Dunze, of course, on the rookie contract. Ryan Poles has had no problems spending money. And as many jokes, I can't remember exactly how he phrased it, but when he first was hired as the GM of the Bears, it's basically like there's no looking back. NFC North is ours. We're going to be kings of the North. And the Bears are going to reach stratospheric heights. And that includes hoisting Lombardis. It's all good. But
since then,
okay, the Fields thing hasn't worked out. However, when this guy puts big money, I mean, it's not a huge track record, but what he did with Montez Sweat and that defense effectively becoming a top 10 defense over the final half of the season post-trade, he has to be respected for some of that. The other draft picks have to work out. Tyreek Stevenson, I forget the name of the big O lineman that they drafted either this year or last year. Last year, of course, because they went QB and Rome. All of that's to play out on the field. And Caleb, we're not going to get to see him tomorrow night, it sounds like. Caleb Williams won't be in the Hall of Fame game. Okay. I would also, let's handle this first. I think it's a big deal in the fact that we need to be paying attention to what the Bears are looking like, because I think Ryan Poles has actually done a pretty good job. Now, you lock all these contracts in and things go south, but DJ Moore, when he's healthy, has been nothing but a beast on the field. And he was terrific for them a year ago in a season in which they were still trying to figure out, can Justin Fields stay on the field? And is this a guy that you can commit long-term money to? They made the decision that they made, obviously. But in the end, I think DJ Moore is fantastic and he's worth the cash that they gave him. And that's going to be instantly, as long as Caleb works out, instantly a formidable option for them. So I think it's a big deal. and actually a good one for the Bears. I think Bears fans coming into this season, I mean, you want to talk about optimism and hope.
Yeah.
Like, all those guys got to be feeling, all of you obnoxious Bears fans, I love Allery's. You guys are all just, I mean, lining the bar right now, and Lavelle providing the anchor. You guys have to be on cloud nine right now with how this thing's being put together. So a lot of positivity there. Big deal. It's a good deal for Bears fans. It's a bad deal for Packers and Vikings fans. It is no big deal, however, that he's not going to be playing tomorrow night. It's no big deal.
Yeah, I would have liked to see it as a viewer, but,
Well, that's the thing.
but ultimately it's not a big deal.
I want to see him, but whether he plays tonight, he'll play in one of the other preseason games. You're going to get to see Caleb Williams reps, and you're going to get to see in an exhibition environment, and probably not too dissimilar from the Vikings. Some of those guys that we're talking about, maybe DJ Moore doesn't play. Roma Dunze, he's a rookie. Maybe you give him limited reps, etc. Keenan Allen probably isn't getting out on the field in a preseason game. The Cole Kmets of the world, do you rest those guys? What's that O-line look like? But you're going to get to see him, and it's going to be cool. But in terms of tomorrow night in Canton, which apparently we have Meat Sauce Paul Lambert and Chris Hockey on site. They were at KHOF. Is that accurate?
I believe so,
in
yeah.
Canton? So maybe we'll get to hear what their thoughts are. Certainly a lot of social media and promoting going on as they are in Canton for those festivities.
I'll get the audio.
But no, the game will go off and you'll get to see Caleb at some point. So no big deal there. Let's hold on to these. Again, final hour. You had a couple more Vikes bites. We'll talk some more NFL bits. There's some Harrison Phillips audio that I heard from yesterday too. That it piqued my interest in terms of looking forward with the Minnesota Vikings. We've barely had padded practices. We haven't had a preseason game. And this morning at about 8 a.m., I'm listening to Harrison Phillips yesterday, and I hear him start talking about what he needs to do to get better at this stage of his career. And I realized, I think he's in the final year of his deal. And then I look and I find out that I think we have 30-some free agents into 2025 with the Vikings, Harrison being one of them, Byron Murphy Jr., and some others. And we keep talking about all this cap space. Well, how quickly that cap space might disappear. But I got that audio, and we got some big deal, no big deal. We got some Vikes Bites final hour as well. Dan Hayes, of course, on the Minnesota Twins at 11 o'clock. Excited to chat with him as always. But next, excited to hang out with Ahmad Hicks, Fox 9. He's in studio. He's been at camp. I mentioned his interview with Jay Ward from yesterday. I want to dig into that with him because it's a complete rat's nest. A cornerback. There's some Olympics in play. We got Go for Football around the corner. We're going to have some fun with Ahmad from Fox 9. That's the 10 a.m. hour coming up. It's Nordo in for PA, 9 to noon.